Welcome. I'm Nid and I am a karma guide as well as spiritual business consultant, and in this video we are looking at where many of us can get a bit unstuck at work, and even sometimes if you own your own business you can lose your voice a little bit in trying to find ways to connect with your audience. Or maybe it arises in relationships with collaborators or with even clients. And this is where you tone down your truth. You don't feel that you're in a place, a position, or a situation with somebody where you could speak your truth. And how is it that you can find a way to stand in your authority of your truth? And I wanted to share a small personal story before I get into some techniques I learned between practicing as a lawyer many years ago, working for many charities and yoga studios, and then also running my own businesses, as to how it is that we can maintain our truth and convey it in different ways depending on the situation. So the personal story is a challenging lifelong relationship with a person in my family who always has a way, an opinion that they wish to adhere to. And we have very many circular conversations around this because I have a different approach. My perception and experience of the world is one that comes from much of the unseen vibration. And so to me, there's a different way of handling things than this person in my family finds a comforting way for them to mentally construct and hold the world around them. And for many years, it just created arguments, right? It created me getting angry and them kind of, having their way of conveying it. And so we'd have these very uncomfortable conversations, and they were very disruptive and detrimental to our relationship and hard for us to move forwards. What I recognized was that to stand in my truth in that situation, it was not necessary for me to keep trying to say my perspective. My truth had been said, but the resonance and the understanding of my truth could not be received by that other person because it's not within their vibrational state to actually tune into that way in which I was trying to convey. And so the strongest way I could stand in my truth was to set out in a very clear email that those terms on which I could understand and deal with that scenario, those conversations, and those were my boundaries. So they were my terms and conditions, right? The way in which we are going to operate, we are going to communicate, and we're going to engage. And then every time that person still tried to do those conversations, to enter into that transaction with me, I could just very kindly end that conversation because my terms have already been set and they are not changing. Right? And there is an understanding. And unless I can feel a change in the vibration at which they're coming, that they have seen, perceived, and changed, I will be open to hear. And so I allow them to begin. I allow them to open that conversation. And if I can feel that vibration is the same, then I will politely end the conversation and move on to something more productive and loving. So this is a way in which you can speak your truth. You can set out very clear terms of no longer entering a conversation, of saying, I am complete, I am done, this is the way forwards, and these are the terms on which I will continue to have this discussion. Otherwise, it's something we should set aside and leave to the past. Now, there are times where we do need to find a way forwards, and we do need to speak up and be able to ensure that our words are landing with another person. And that can feel very scary, right? My example with somebody in my family, and I purposely picked that because it's a lifelong journey when it's someone in your family. It's not just a couple of years with a new colleague at work. But what often happens when we have these very challenging colleagues at work, or we meet these very difficult people in our lives, that make us want to shut down, be quiet, go small, right, is exactly that. Your energy gets small and your posture gets small. So number one is to really allow your physical posture to start to step into holding those boundaries, holding your truth, and standing in your truth. So one of the things that I consciously chose in doing this video is to stand on my feet, to stand in that center of power and feel that strength. And you may have seen the Amy Cuddy TED Talk, which has the kind of power poses, which can help us really feel our strength and our power. And it really is up to you what helps you connect into that power pose. But when you're coming into a challenging conversation, someone that you know you're going to find that you want to become the wallflower, that you want to get small, that you don't want to speak up, if you speak from this place, they are not going to listen to you. They are not going to be willing to receive what you have to say. So owning your space and being able to stand with authority is important. So finding those postures, and they're often a sense of expansion, that sense of pushing, opening the body, finding this tensegrity if you work with the fascial body. So we want this sense of expansion whilst being soft, whilst being open-hearted. So it's not a rigid kind of holding, but it's soft, it's open, but it is firm and expansive. So looking for that tensegrity, fascial complex expansion work in how you stand and hold yourself will start to expand your energy, to be able to hold your truth, to hold your boundaries, and to be received by somebody else as an authority. I say that with the caveat that when we are standing in authority, we want to make sure we're not imposing, that we're not being righteous, and that we are not kind of being down upon somebody either. And that's why it's important that you take the principle of tensegrity, expansion, softness and openness as you find that strength and powerful pose. So you might want to practice some planks, you might want to practice doing some star jumps or something like that to really help your body start to open and get that expansive state. And that's a really wonderful way in which we can use our body to uplift that vibration and find ourselves into that stronger state. And I definitely have used that against some very terrifying bosses in my career. You know, whether it's been jumping into a handstand, finding myself like doing some jumping jacks, anything to help me kind of find that uplift, that higher energetic state, to then be able to stand in that voice. The next step when we do get into that person, maintaining that presence, maintaining that energetic field with your body, is going to be appreciation of that person. We all find that it softens the tone and the energy when we show appreciation for somebody's situation, for somebody's suffering. And if they're not somebody who wants to hear about their suffering, if they've got dissociation issues and they're not really able to receive that amount of honesty, then you need to show them appreciation for their efforts, for their hard work, and for seeing, you know, their skills and their qualities that they bring to what it is that your relationship is about. And in the past, I have been definitely pegged as being overly appreciative when I have had very challenging bosses in particular, but it works. And that's the only thing I can say. It works. To be appreciative puts you in a more grateful state. It helps you to be more open and receptive, to find common ground and solutions. And it will also soften them, even if they just think it's kind of funny that you're doing it. And this is a part of how we maneuver ourselves when we're being truthful with people who may not want to hear or work with that truth. We need to position ourselves, and we do that by knowing our own posture, our own boundaries, and then showing true appreciation for that person, what they bring, and to see them, to validate them for what it is that they are there in that relationship for. And with this, you start to see and speak to their fears and motivations. So whether or not they perceive that they are motivated by fear, or whether they're motivated by things that inspire them, you want to know somebody's motivation. And that is what you start to speak to. And that will help you form a connection, form a listening, so that they can start to hear you. So there's a lot here in the setup before we even get into you being able to speak your truth. So you need to be fully present with your physical presence with your appreciation, and present with their motivations, talking to them, their emotional state, even if they are unaware of what that is. And then finally, now we start to move into that place of common ground, that place of we are two humans connecting. This is what we share. And from what you share, from that common ground, then arises from it a story which has a different way of unfolding and a different potential outcome. And that is where you weave your truth into that new unfolding, that new way, that new possibility. And there may be resistance as you start to lay that unfolding, and that's okay. You return back and speak to those motivations. You return back and connect into that common ground. This is how you take them on that journey with you, so that you can speak your truth in the comfort, in your full presence, and in your power. And this is a beautiful way of forming relationships and of healing relationships, whether we're at work or whether it's within our family. And as I mentioned earlier on, those boundaries of knowing where it is that it's a conversation that's not appropriate in that situation. It's not a conversation for these people to have in this way, and that maybe there's another way that that conversation can happen, and being open to that. Because as you speak your truth, as you connect with that other person, stay open to the possibility that things may change. But at the same time, hold those boundaries and hold your truth. I trust that this will open up some beautiful new relationships and experiences for you at work, and maybe also in your personal life. And if you're intrigued to learn a little bit more about how this could go further in work scenarios, how it is that you can have win-win, and this is coming from a lawyer who it's supposed to be win-lose, but we're interested in win-win relationships. How do we create it so that everybody thrives? Everybody flourishes, then check out the Spiritual Business Portal, where this month there is a bonus video and worksheet on the steps to creating win-win negotiations. And as a side note, I have never had a client in all of my years, whether as a lawyer or in the spiritual business world, who has not had the most successful and wonderful outcomes using the strategy that I'm sharing in the portal. So go check it out and make sure that your future is filled with those win-win relationships and unfolding of beautiful creation. Thank you.